Some of the big moments from BYU and Utah in recent years. And of course, the Utes won some of those games and made some big plays, but this is BYUtv, not Utah TV. So we just edited those out.
If that doesn't get you fired up, what does? I'm sitting there watching those plays, and that is a fun, takedown memory lane right there.
BYUtv football analyst Blaine Fowler here as we set the tone now for Rivalry Week. And as a player, looking back on the BYU-Utah series, what was it like leading up to the game here on a Monday?
It's the biggest event in the state of Utah. It really is every year. It's a shame that it's this early in the season now. I hate that it's not the last game of the season when we know more about these football teams. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you play the first game, the third game, or the 12th game of the season. It's huge. Everybody wants to talk to you about it on campus, in town. You can't escape it. It's the biggest event in Utah. Well,
let's talk about some of the mysteries surrounding BYU and what they may have found answers to against Weber State back on Saturday in that victory here in Provo.
Well, they ran the ball better in that ball game, but I still think they need to make advances in the run game. They've got to get better in the offensive line at creating some seams, but we saw some signs of good things there. We found out that the defense is really, really good, and we thought that after Washington State, and I'm convinced now that this is a very talented, very effective defense. So we didn't learn too much against Weber State, but just a chance to clean some things up, get guys playing time, and I think they come into this ball game healthy and ready to go.
Did get to see Cody Hoffman come back after that thigh bruise against Washington State. He had a nice game, played maybe just 2 quarters and some change, 100 yards plus and a touchdown, and he was our game changer on Saturday.
Yeah, he has a huge impact when he's in the ball game because Riley Nelson can look out there, and if he sees him isolated one-on-one, he knows that he can go to him. Even if he's covered, he can throw the football out there because he's going to go get the football. He'll take it away from a defensive back in one-on-one coverage. He also has a big impact in the kick return game. And yet people don't realize how fast Cody Hoffman is because he looks like he's just gliding. But when he gets that thing going, he can run away from people. And this is what I'm talking about right here. A guy that can just reach up and take the ball away. And Riley Nelson comes out, he looks and he says, hey, there's no safety that's going to help that defensive back out. I know where I'm going. I'm throwing it down the field to Cody Hoffman.
And what does he get?
Well, he gets a helmet sticker. I always get nervous because Riley Nelson comes in and critiques how I put these on the helmet.
Exactly. We did it all wrong last season.
Blaine does it all wrong. And so he rearranged these. I'm going to put it where Riley tells me to put it.
All right.
And our helmet sticker, no question, goes to our MVP of that game, and that's Cody Hoffman. A big impact. Having him back in the lineup is a nice thing.
How about an instant impact from Alex Carresa, who got his first real legitimate playing time on Saturday, and he made some great catches.
Yeah, he was our Y factor. He's just such a good athlete. He's able to run around and create. When he was a quarterback in high school up at Mountain Crest and Logan,
he was going to throw right here.
Yeah, I think he wanted to throw it down the field to James Larkin, but James wasn't open. And so they're going to use him in a lot of packages. He can run the ball on the fly sweep like you see here. He can throw it out of that set. They can put him in and have him do a halfback pass. So we'll see more and more of Alex as the season progresses. And they're just trying to find a way to get a good athlete on the field. And even though he was recruited as a quarterback, he's going to play a major role as a receiver and a guy that can run the football.
You've been talking the last couple of weeks a lot about BYU's offensive line and what it needs to do to advance the football in the ground game as we roll out the film session for this week. And let's talk about that offensive line, what you like, what you see they need to do better.
They created some good holes this last week. We're going to take a look at a play where J.D. Falslev was running the football, and you have a block coming from the outside back to the inside. You see Jordan Brown's going to kick out and the fullback lead up. So important that they get these angles. And I love the fact that the corner is going to chase the wide receiver down. You see that block there, and there's this beautiful seal. And this is where Falslev's going to run the football up that seam. You're looking for the offensive linemen and receivers to create seams. This is a beautiful seam this time for J.D. Falslev, and he's going to take it up that seam. Great blocks. If your wide receivers will block, and you get good solid play out of that offensive line, you get big plays in the run game. We haven't seen enough of these yet, and you're going to see the view now that J.D. Falslev has. Look at that seam. This is what he sees.
Lots of green.
Is he's getting the ball. Great seal down block by the wide receiver. Great kick out by Jordan Brown. A good seal block by the fullback. Now we're going to come down goal line. 2 tight ends in the ball game. You have Kaniakua Friel at left end. They're going to run a crossing route. He's going to run that crossing route with Matthews. Watch the corner here. Run with Matthews and vacate that side of the ball. And so Friel's going to come across. All of the action goes to the left. As you get that defense to move, Friel's going to come wide open. You see right here, he's going to come wide open. Beautiful protection by that. Look at that pocket created. And here comes Frio on the backside, wide open, no corner back there because that corner has followed Marcus Matthews, and you've got yourself a touchdown.
James Lark on the throw.
Yeah, and Lark doing a good job of selling the action to the left, coming back. So all that flow goes to the left. You have that crossing route. It confuses the defense. The corner runs with Matthews and Frio wide open. Just like they drew it up on the chalkboard, it worked perfectly.
You're good at that film session stuff.
Yeah, we like a little telestrator. That's fun.
We like getting in your mind, seeing what's in there. Let's turn our sights now to the Utes and get to know the foe. The Cougars on the road for the first time this season, separated by about 45 miles. Utah has a student enrollment of 31,000. They've got 16 of their 22 starters back, -1 today. We'll get to that. Notable alumni include Stephen R. Covey, J. Willard Marriott, current BYU president Cecil O. Samuelson, and of course, most notable of all, current church president Thomas S. Monson, who has degrees from both schools, so we're not sure who he's pulling for this weekend. We like to think that he's pulling for BYU. The Utah-BYU crossover on both coaching staffs. A little surprising, of course, head coach Kyle Whittingham, former roommate of Blaine Fowler's and a star linebacker at BYU. Receivers coach Aaron Roderick, defensive coordinator Kalani Sitake both played at BYU. On the BYU side, defensive line coach Steve Kafusi played and coached Utah before joining the Cougar staff. All those guys have a significant impact on their football programs.
Well, you have coaching staffs that are familiar with one another. You have players that played against each other in high school. That's what makes this game such a big and fun game. You have families that are divided. They'll sit in that room and watch the game on television, and half the family's rooting for Utah and the other half rooting for BYU. That's what makes this game a great rivalry.
In addition to losing their quarterback for the season, Utah loses that game at Utah State the other night. What did you learn about the Utes watching that game?
Well, they have got some struggles on the offensive line, and they're trying to fill in for two great tackles that played there that were seniors last year, and they just haven't found that chemistry in the offensive line. So without the ability to run the ball effectively with John White, it put a lot of pressure on the quarterbacks, and Jordan Wynn took a pounding. Utah State did a great job of putting pressure on Wynn. They knocked him out of the game. Hayes and Travis Wilson had to come in and try to fill in, and now we go into this game this week. We found out today that Jordan Wynn is out. He's retired from football. He won't be in a Utah uniform ever again. Hurt that left shoulder for a 4th time. And we'll see who plays quarterback. But whether it's Hayes or Wilson, that's not the situation Utah wanted to be in.
So when it comes to who to watch, of course, we'll be watching John White out of the backfield for Utah.
Yeah, so much more pressure on John White now because of the uncertainty at quarterback. He has got to be able to carry them like he did last year. And he's a big-time back that can run with power inside. He can make people miss and get you big plays. And against BYU last season, 174 yards. Look at the per-carry average.
And most of those yards in the second half when the wheels came off.
And Utah's offensive line did a great job of knocking people off the ball in this game last season. Well, White was the key to their offense last year. And he carried them. When John Hayes was playing quarterback, this is a guy that rushed for over 1,500 yards. So we'll watch to see how he does in this ball game. If he has a big game, that's good for Utah.
The star on the defense for Utah is Star, and he may be the best football player on their entire roster.
Yeah, there's not any question. Star Lotulelei he's a fantastic defensive lineman. He reminds me of Haloti Ngata that plays for the Ravens. He can dominate the line of scrimmage. He's a big physical player that can tie up 2 blocks. And BYU will have to account for him every play. He can just collapse a pocket that you're trying to create for a passer by taking 2 guys and running them right back into the quarterback.
Back in June, Kyle Van Noy was sitting here with us leading into Media Day, and we asked him about the Utah game, and he was just like, we'll be ready. I'm not going to say anything else because I'll probably get in trouble. Just know we'll be ready. Kyle Van Noy will be one to watch on Saturday.
Yeah, when he gets fired up, he's awful hard to stop. And with the problems that Utah has had at the tackle position so far this season, he's scary coming off the edge because they'll have to step out and pick him up when he's in a pass rush situation. They may have to help on Kyle Van Noy, have a running back chip him on the way out. He's just such a great pass rusher. And he makes a lot of plays with that speed from behind the play. You don't see a lot of linebackers with the speed to not only chase things from the front side, but if you run away from him, he's so quick. He'll come down the line of scrimmage and he'll make a tackle from behind. So Utah will have to find Van Noy, and they need him to have a big game. One
of the biggest differences in this matchup, as opposed to last year, is the starting quarterback for BYU, and it's Riley Nelson on Saturday night. How does that change things?
It's a big difference. Riley Nelson has had this team for the entire offseason, and believe me, he's been thinking about this Utah game. Everyone's been waiting to get to this game because revenge is on everyone's mind. They'll tell you that they don't look back to last year, but they do. And having a senior quarterback that is experienced, has been in the battles, that knows what to do in clutch situations, and has won tight ball games down the stretch. I mean, I think about that Armed Forces Bowl victory and what a great job Riley Nelson did of leading that team in a tough situation. You need to have that moxie at quarterback in this ball game. And so BYU now, with Jordan Wynn out, has a huge advantage at the quarterback position with Riley Nelson being there.
Utah wins on Saturday night if what?
Well, if John White can run the football for 150 yards or more, that will be a big deal for them. They have got to be able to get big production in the run game. And then if there's another thing that they could do, they need to get some big plays. So if they can get plays that are 30-plus or more, that puts them in a good position as well. And that's what they need in this one.
For BYU, Cougars win.
BYU absolutely has got to stop Utah from running the football. They have got to shut down that run game. They can't have John White go for 174 yards a game again in this ball game like he did last year. And they have to win the turnover battle. They can't allow Utah to turn them over and force their turnovers like they have in the last couple of years. It's
going to be interesting because, as we talked about in our postgame show, it was 10-7 for BYU with 30 seconds left in that first half. And then you throw in what happened in the second half, and it's 54-10. And the mistake a lot of people make is Utah is better than BYU by a 54-10 margin, and BYU is that much worse, when reality is that's not true.
Yeah, when you turn the ball over 7 times, you get blown out. And that's what happens. You can't be that far on the negative end of the turnover margin battle. That's just what happens, and the wheels come off and things happen. Physically, those teams were very evenly matched last year, and that's the case again this year. Utah's defensive line is a strength. They're very good there, and so that's a matchup we'll be watching, BYU's O-line against their D-line. And it will be a physical ball game, as always. Turnovers can play a huge factor in this ball game.
We're on Wikipedia today, and we learned that Lavelle Edwards played at Utah State and graduated there. Then he got his master's at Utah and became a legend at BYU, supporting the theory of evolution.
Yeah, exactly. And he's got ties to every university. But I think you're going to see Lavelle call BYU home.
Yeah, and he'll be wearing blue. Hey, make sure to log on to BYUTVsports.com Tuesdays to see True Blue Extra, featuring what we learned from today's show, as well as extra video and things that are interesting that are on Blaine's mind. That's Tuesday. Look for it on BYUTVsports.com.